Hello, boys and girls. This is Mr. Salamanca talking to you directly from my house in Lodi, and I hope you guys are doing okay. Your families are okay, and you are staying home and safe. Although it's becoming hard to stay inside when it's such a beautiful weather, but hey, we could still go out into the backyard and play a little. Just stay safe. Keep the distance, the social distance. That's actually helping out on the containment of the epidemic, the virus that's going on around. Anyways, we are keeping you in our prayers, keeping everybody in our prayers. And I want you, and I always ask you guys, please keep everybody that's out there fighting this awful time in our prayers. Keep the firemen, the police, the doctors, the people that bring food to the poor, to the elderly. Keep them in your prayers because it's important. It helps them. And at the same time, remember what I always tell you guys on class. Make sure that you do good things to others, including your parents, including everybody that you could contact. I tell you as a little bit of an example of what I do. I call my parents every day nowadays because they're home alone in Florida and they can't even go outside. It's dangerous for them to go outside because of the what's going on there. So I make it a point, like probably once I'm done with the meeting, with the video, I'm gonna go look up 3 or 4 jokes or no jokes necessarily, but also gestures or questions where they will be able to identify just simple things, so that you know what's the element of whatever. So a simple joke, whatever, just to keep them alert. But I said I'll talk to them and I keep them occupied so that it keeps them from being worried. And I assure them that we're okay. So do the same to them, to your parents. And remember, I mentioned I gave you guys a challenge maybe a month or so ago about calling somebody that probably wouldn't be expecting your phone call, a long cousin, a long friend, a long uncle, an uncle that's somewhere out there in the other part of the world. Give him a call. Say, how you doing, Uncle? How's everything? You don't know how important it is, particularly on this time, to receive good news from somebody. So keep everybody in the prayers, and I will keep you guys in prayer as well. Anyways, today we are going to cover chapter 17, which talks to us about the Pope and the bishops and the importance of them. So it's going to actually reinforce some of the stuff that we talk about in class. I remember mentioning to you guys several instances who the Pope was, the bishops are, but we're going to go more into details right now. At the same time, I also remember telling you who was the first Pope. But because we might not remember, I'm going to start by reading one lecture that makes it important to understand. And this is a lecture from the same book that we read last week, Matthew. It's Matthew chapter 16, verses 15 to 19. And it goes like this. It says, Jesus asked him, who do you say I am? And Simon Peter answered, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Good for you, said John, son of John, answered Jesus. For this truth did not come to you from a human being, but it was given to you directly from my Father in heaven. And so I tell you, Peter, you are a rock, and on this rock foundation I will build my church, and not even death will ever be able to overcome it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whom you prohibit on earth will be prohibited in heaven, and what you permit on earth will be permitted in heaven. That's important. It's clever. It's right there. It's telling us more or less. Jesus told Peter, you are the rock. You are going to lead my church. And so by that, more or less, he told you're it. Anybody has to listen to you. So just for human nature and just to relate, as humans, we always look for leadership, for somebody to tell us what to do. I know teenagers say, I know everything, I don't need nobody to tell me. But even in the wild kingdoms, the lions always have the king lion per se, and all of the lions that go around him. Wolves, a pack of wolves always have a leader, and everybody. So we also need leadership as human beings. We need somebody to tell us what's right and wrong, and that is the Pope. So Peter was assigned to be the leader of the church by Jesus. So, if you guys recall about back in November, I mentioned you guys the first pope was Peter, and so this confirms it. Hey, I didn't tell you guys a lie. So, with that in mind, why do we need leadership? Because without leadership, we might lose track of what we're doing, or we might not know what we're doing. If we lose, say, we don't have a math teacher, how are we going to lead? How are we going to learn math? If we don't have a science teacher, how are we going to learn science? We could read books, but if it makes it easier if we have some guidance. So, with that in mind, it's important to understand that there's a reason why we have leadership in the church. We have leadership in school. We have a principal. We have the teachers, and in our houses we have mommy, we have daddy, and so on. So, and just to be clear, there's no, and mommy and daddy are the same level. There's no difference. I don't want anybody to say, hey, mommy, daddy, Mrs. Lamaka said daddy is more important. Not at all. Everybody has a role at home. So now with that in mind, well, okay, so we had the Pope, we had the bishops, we had the priests. Well, what's up with the priests? What's up with the bishops? Well, who are the bishops? The bishops are really a higher level priest per se. We have Father Francisco in our church, and he guides us every Sunday. He gives us not only guides, he also gives us the sacraments, and he listens to us on confession. He is being given the ability to forgive our sins in behalf of Jesus. Jesus gave it to Peter and his disciples. So now to go to further enlarge on the teachings of the disciples, as we talked about last week on the Bible, Jesus told his disciples to go out and preach and his teachings, and so they did. And you recall, we talk about the disciples weren't the ones who wrote the Bible. It was the disciples of the disciples, but at the same time, Jesus asked the disciples to go out and teach, and such. We have priests that teach us, but we also have the duty to go out and teach the message. To the greatest news, God resurrected. We just celebrated it last 2 weeks ago on Jesus' resurrection when we have Easter. So we need to focus on teaching. But we're not bishops, we're not priests. We are relating what we hear. So we need the leaders to teach us that. And that's why we have the local teachers, which are a priest. But the priests also have to get reading teachings from their upper house, which are the bishops. Now, why are the bishops? Because the bishops have a reporting, and that's something that we need to analyze more. So if the Pope is the leader of the church, the first Pope was Peter, our current Pope is Francis, who happens to have been a priest, a bishop in Argentina, and now he's the ruler of our church, and he is in Rome. So how does he teach in Argentina? Who's teaching now in Argentina if he's in Rome? Well, that's the role of the bishop and the priest. They all had to come together and give our teachings out there, but at the same time they needed the leadership from the Rome. Rome comes to the bishops who are in Argentina. We have our bishop in Newark, and then the bishop tells the priest in Lora and the other areas where we go to church or where we sit, and the priest teach us, right? But one of the critical parts, and it goes on to the part where we talk about the disciples and what they had to do. I'm going to read a segment of the Bible, which actually it's not from Matthew, it's from the Acts of the Apostles, it's book number 16, and it goes like this. Paul wanted to take Timothy along with him, so he circumcised him. He did so because all the Jews who lived in those places knew that Timothy's father was Greek. As they went through the towns, they delivered to the believers the rules that the orders upon apostles and elders in Jerusalem, and they told them to obey these rules. So the churches were made stronger in faith and grew in numbers every day. So what does that tell us? That also they were teaching Jesus' message, they were also telling the rules on keeping the faith and living the faith. With that in mind, that's the role of the disciples, which are the Pope, the bishops, the priests, and us. But we have not taken the training and the learnings that a priest and a bishop have, and that's why they are there. That we need them for the leadership and the teachings. So that's the reason why we have the Pope, the bishops, the leadership. We need them to lead the church. And the same token, we need to help them. How do we help them? By spreading the word, the good news. God, Jesus resurrected, and that's what. And our sacraments, which are very important, we also need to enrich everybody to tell them, you know, the greatest miracle happened. Jesus resurrected, and I see him, and I celebrate it every Sunday. So, with that, I'm gonna leave you guys on that. I gotta put out 3 questions for you guys on the homework. So I will elaborate on the questions. I want you guys to think hard as to what's going on out there. Hopefully, in a couple of weeks, we might be able to. Hopefully, we might be able to go back to normal, or at least somewhat normal. I know they're talking about perhaps we will be being able to go back out and work and do all the activities, but with a lot of social distances. With that in mind, I want you guys to stay home, stay alert, keep your parents happy, do everything that they ask you in a good manners. Don't get upset if they ask you to clean the room. They're not asking you because they're mean. They're asking you because it also teaches you guys. I used to do it. I used to get upset sometimes, but I realized that, you know what? If I don't clean it, it's gonna get ugly. So I'd rather clean it now than have to do it, get it worse later on, and do what I mentioned to you guys. Do as much as you can, good things to everybody. Help your parents, obey them, and above all, listen and pray. Pray for everybody that's out there. Please, it's important. Prayer will move mountains. That's one of the saying that I used to say where I come from. And well, I hope you guys are stay healthy and safe, and I will pray for you guys. Thank you.